All right, finna go to get started. What's good, everybody? Welcome back to the Life of a Champ podcast. For today's episode 167, we're going to be discussing the hardest part about self improvement, and more importantly, your self improvement journey and our self improvement journey. So, if you're in the chat, make sure to let me know. If you're rewatching this, make sure to let me know as well. Jaden, appreciate you for stopping by. A few things I want to mention before I go to get started. Make sure to go ahead and follow me on TikTok, Rumble, and Twitch, all at Life of a Champ podcast. Tapping with that for sure. As well as make sure to go ahead and leave a like on my YouTube shorts as well as my YouTube clips. Hopefully, I'll be posting more soon. So tap in with that for sure. If you can't catch the full podcast, but still want to get the game that I be spitting, that's going to be your best bet for sure. But getting into it, like I said, today's episode, the hardest part about your self improvement journey. Now, this is not exactly going to be one that people are going to anticipate or expect. And maybe you watching this right now with your self improvement journey, maybe you're beyond this, and hopefully you're beyond this. But for the people that are just starting out, this is the hardest part, and that's exactly what it comes down to. Is the hardest part is the beginning part. So yeah, I'm gonna go to get started in a minute. But like I said, if you're in the chat, make sure you go to let me know. Starting a little bit early today, but that's just what we needed to go ahead and do today. All right, so I'll get into it. I'll get into it. So like I said, the hardest part of our self improvement journey is this specifically. It's understanding that you right now, the current state that you are right now, let's just say even before you get into self improvement, right? You come to this realization that you're not good enough, and that you're not where you want to be. Your life isn't where you want to be, and maybe isn't even going where you want it to go, right? And like I said, that's going to be the hardest part, the hardest realization is understanding that you're not sufficient enough, right? You have a lot of progress that could be made. You're not making any strides towards those goals, or rather, maybe you don't even have any goals at all. But it's that harsh reflection. It's that point of view that you have on yourself and that you have on the world now. It's that newly adopted identity that hasn't exactly fully instilled itself yet, but yet is trying to manifest its way into your life, right? And it is going to be one of the most challenging things. At least this is what I personally observe within the self improvement space, and this is why most people don't even get started. This is why most people refuse to even find interest in some of these things, is because it's hard, because it takes a lot of reflection. It takes a lot of everything. If I'm going to be honest with you, like I said, through my own personal experiences, it takes everything. It takes what does it take? What does it take? It takes it takes a numbness almost. It takes you have to be able to become numb to like what people find is the most painful thing, if that makes any sense. This is what I personally observed. So what I mean by that is this right here. When it comes to looking at your insufficiencies and the things in the areas that you need to get better at, most people shy away from this because it's very, very painful, because it's very, very uncomfortable feeling to realize how good you're not, right? That's like the most painful thing. But like I said, I'm speaking for myself, and like I said, I'm speaking from a person who's put in work, right? Who's 5 years into self development, right? I've been able to create this regular for myself, this bare minimum for myself, where that's only what I expect from myself, is to keep constantly going through these hard things and constantly reevaluating my personal self. And like I said, it is probably going to be one of the hardest things for a lot of people. But like I said, if you're in the game of self improvement, this is going to be something that you must overcome, right? And the way that I would like to look at it is this, right? I needed, just like everybody else needs to, get over themselves. That's what it comes down to. You need to get over yourself, right? You need to get over these emotions of you being uncomfortable, or you not wanting to hear the truth, and you shying away from your potential. You need to get rid of all these things because they're not doing anything for you, right? And I find that very, very interesting that when people are very, very resistant to the idea of trying to self improve, right? Maybe I mean, here's the thing. Maybe they don't even say that explicitly. Maybe it's through their actions. That maybe they're more entertainment focused, or maybe they're a person who doesn't even care, or maybe they just like social media for what it is. They're not trying to utilize it for what it could be for them, right? But what it comes down to it is this: is everything that's not going into self improvement is literally running away from yourself. It's running away from your potential. That's what it comes down to, right? And like I said, you have to evaluate that for yourself, right? Within your value hierarchy, is that something that should be valued, or is that something that should be just discarded, right? I feel like if a lot of people were to truly ask themselves that question and truly want to find an answer, they'll understand very, very quickly that the route chosen for themselves isn't exactly going to live up to their potential. That's what it comes down to, right? This isn't even a common thing nowadays, right? It's just getting a little bit more mainstream. Self improvement's getting a little bit more mainstream nowadays, but back when I used to watch self improvement, this wasn't one of the biggest things on the internet, not even close. You had to go out of your way to seek out good content creators. Not to say that you don't have to do that now, but there's a lot more good information out. But back 5 years ago when I started, right, there was a lot less positive content. There was a lot more negative content. And I would say honestly, there's probably a lot more negative content right now than ever before, but there's still a lot of negative content out there. But I want to kind of go back on the thing that I already had talked about, right? When it comes to that realization of saying that you're not good enough and things like that, there's only two routes that you can possibly go, right? You can have the point of view of saying, you know what, I'm not good enough, man. I'm not good enough. I'm not going to be able to do enough. I'm not where I want to be, and there's really nothing I can do about it. You can have that negative point of view, and obviously it's going to give you a negative life, right? And like I said, life is pretty much it's going to be your perspective, anyways. But you can have that negative point of view, or you can shift that to a positive point of view. This implementation is going to be where most people are flawed, is because they don't have this instilled within themselves to constantly recorrect the negatives, right? You must recorrect all negatives within your life to become a positive thing. If you truly want to live the most positive and happy life you possibly can, even the negatives are something that you're supposed to look for the good in, right? Obviously, I'm not saying that's easy, and like I said, it wasn't easy for me in my life and the things that I've done and the negative things that I've went through, but it's something that I still needed to do because I evaluated you can either have that negative experience or you can turn that negative experience into something that's positive. So like I said, for example, when you turn it into a positive, right? When you say, hey, you know what, I'm not good enough, right? I could be more than I am. I'm not doing the things that are going to lead me to the future that I would like to live, right? You having that very, very conscious and aware, um that conscious and awareness of yourself and of your current state of being, you can now understand that no matter where you are in the game, no matter if you're almost on the one of the last levels or if you're just starting in this game of life, you have potential, right? And with the potential over time, you're able to dedicate yourself, hopefully dedicate yourself to a purpose or to a craft that is eventually going to give you the benefits that you will like within this life. Choose the right if you choose the right vehicle, you'll be able to get there, right? That is something that I've thought about for hours and hours and hours of my life because I found it to be one of the most valuable things that I personally learned over the last 5 years. And with that being said, it all comes from the same start. That's kind of what I want to reiterate is it's all going to come from the same start, and it's all going to matter about the point of view that you have and the perspective that you're willing to have in that. Like I said, are you one of these people? And like I said, I would say 60. I'm gonna be honest with you. 70% of people, at least, when it comes to recognizing their own self insufficiencies, they're not very very um they're not curious. They're not willing to act on it in a positive way. They're much more willing to, like I said, accept the negative for what it is and live as if that negative is forever. If that negative is going to be who you are for the rest of your life. Most people live that specific way. Like I said, I don't make podcasts for those types of people, right? I make podcasts for people who recognize this and who recognize what I'm saying and understanding it very, very thoroughly to the point where they say, you know what? I could easily have that, let's just say, that negative point of view. I could easily have that negative point of view, right? I could easily function within that negative way of being, right? Or I could take the opposite route and use those negatives to my advantage, right? So, like I said, are you using your negatives to your advantage? All those insufficiencies, all the weaknesses that you have, are you using that to your advantage? Are you saying, you know what? I'm starting at the bottom, but I can't go any lower. I only can go up from here, right? I only can make progress. I only can get better, right? That is where you want to be. That is where you want to be within this. Like I said, it is going to be one of the hardest, like I said, the hardest parts about self-improvement, but nonetheless, just because it's hard doesn't mean it's negative. It can be easily turned into a positive. This is something that I've easily shifted, and like I said, this is what I recognize thoroughly when it comes to observing people and why they're not as dedicated to self-improvement as much as I am. It's because they're more willing to accept those negative things for what they are instead of changing them, right? I'm a big believer in you having control within this life, right? Your ability to control is a lot more than what people are willing to admit, unfortunately, right? Most people are victims of life, not a person who makes life their victim, if that makes any sense, right? But essentially, hopefully you understand what I'm trying to say with that, right? But one thing I want to mention with this as well, right, is if you're able to dedicate yourself to a craft, like I said, eventually down the line, that is something that you're going to go ahead and need to fulfill a purpose, right? Your ability to become very, very good is going to lead it to be one of the most rewarding things that you could ever pursue within this life, right? You making progress within yourself, you recognizing your weaknesses and making them your strong suits is one of the most rewarding things that does exist. So, for example, me before this podcast, I was a person who wasn't exactly super competent when it comes to speech, right? Now, me doing this over almost 3 years now, I'm a little bit more better with my speech, right? I'm not going to say I'm the best. I'm definitely not the best, but I'm definitely getting better, and I'm definitely better than a lot of people, especially people that are just starting off, of course. And like I said, that is a very rewarding feeling because now I can go ahead and express the way that my mind works, and I feel like that can help out a lot of people, right? This is why I'm doing what I'm doing. But like I said, the only way to get to that point is to first have the hardest realization that you potentially can have within your life, which is knowing deep down that you're not good enough, that you're going to have the pressure of becoming your biggest critic, right? That's just what it comes down to. That's the only way. The only way to make progress is to have these certain things in line. And like I said, some people are going to like I said, have a very, very negative perspective of you being your biggest critic, but at the same time, somebody needs to be that for you. And who better than yourself? Because you know yourself better than any other person. So therefore, you being able to judge yourself is going to be the most accurate judge that does exist because you know what's wrong with you. You're the only person that knows everything wrong with you. You're the only person that knows all your weaknesses. You're the only person that knows all of your areas of improvement that you could be aiming for, right? That's just you, right? Now there's certain people, maybe your father, maybe one of your friends that maybe knows some of what I just had mentioned, right? But you're the only person that's going to know all of it. Hopefully, you can eventually become painfully aware of that, right? But like I said, you must be able to first accept that hardest thing. And like I said, you must get over yourself. Get over yourself. Get over the fact that you're probably not going to feel the best way that you possibly can feel right now. And it's okay. It's okay because there's work to be put in. There's areas of improvement that need to be improved upon. And that is okay because you have time. You have potential and you have time. So therefore, you can act on your time and act on your potential. But like I said, some people view this as the hardest part potentially. And like I said, this is what's going to deter a lot of people from even trying to invest their time and energy into this certain field. But at the same time, the way that I personally view it is this was one of the most exciting points of my entire life that started my entire self-development journey. I recognized what the areas I needed to improve in. So like I said, one area I needed to improve in, which was the way that I thought, right? Maybe my thinking wasn't the best, right? My thinking could have been way worse, but the ability to develop the ways in which you think by giving yourself good inputs, right? Maybe watching a few good videos, maybe learning a few new things of your interest, right? That's going to definitely put you or steer you in the right direction. Hopefully, if your interests are of good quality, right? But like I said, it was one of the most exciting things that I've ever experienced because, like I said, I finally realized something that not a lot of people begin to realize within this life, and maybe some never even come to these conclusions that I've came to. Very very early on within my journey, like I had mentioned, right, most people are not willing to look themselves in the mirror for what they actually are and saying, you know what, you could be better. Here's your areas of improvement. Here's all your weaknesses. We're gonna lay it out all on the table, and it's up to you. And it's only up to you. It's your full responsibility to go ahead and change this for yourself. Like I said, that's a lot for people to handle. Along with all the pressures of life, that's too much to handle for a lot of people. And like I said, their exact circumstance, they're in their same exact circumstance because of the results of their decisions, of the results of their thoughts, of the results of submitting to life, right? Like I said, I'm not a person that's going to be fully accepting of that, right? And I would act in accordance with that, right? One thing I want to mention as well is I observe this very often, like I had mentioned, right? I think people are too scared to raise their standards for themselves, right? They're too scared to admit the upside of their potential. Think about that for a second. Most are too scared to raise their standards, right? And they're too scared to admit the upside of their potential self. Let that sink in for a second. Because just admitting that you have potential just creates a version of yourself that's the most ideal version of yourself, right? Which automatically gives you an aim, hopefully, right? Which automatically puts this perspective in your mind saying, holy shit, I am not where I want to be. I am not where I could be. And like I said, that is where most people stop. But here's the thing. These harsh reflections of life are just life in general, right? You should not be running away from these certain things, right? I see so many people running away. They're just running away. That's all they can do. That's all they've learned. That's all they've seen growing up. Is people run away. It's people run away from those hard moments. Those hard moments of reflection. It's easier. It's so much easier to run away. I could just be like everybody else, talking about the same thing that everybody else is talking about, but I'm not. Because I wasn't scared. I ran towards that fear. I didn't run away from the fear. Most people run away from that fear. But like I said, if you look at the results of their life, of course they ran away. But like I said, so now you have two options, right? With all this knowledge that you've already consumed, right? You have two options. You can either run away or you can run towards your potential self. That's all. Those are the only two decisions you have. So go ahead and answer that for yourself. Do you want to be like the rest of everybody else who run away from their potential self because it's so much of a hard realization to understand that you're not good enough right now? Or are you going to be one of these people who recognizes they're not all that they could be and act on that and understand that thoroughly you can be more than what you are right now, so therefore you must act as if you could be more than where you are right now. Right? Like I said, the reason it's the hardest is because it's so much thinking, it's so much self-reflection, it's so much judgment on self, it's so much, like I said, becoming your biggest critic in literally in every aspect of life. Almost every aspect of life. It's becoming a very harsh critic to understand that, like I said, you're not good enough right now because you're not all that you could be. And that's okay. And the point of view that those people have, right? They think it's better to shy away immaturely than to take on life for what it is and to strive for who they actually want to be. And like I said, I think that's one of the goofiest decisions you ever could make is to shy away from moments like this. Like I said, life is meant to be uncomfortable. Life is meant to be a harsh reflection of yourself. Life is meant to be all these things, and that's just the way it is, man. I didn't make it this way. But like I said, then you leave yourself with two options, right? Like I said, you're either running away, like everybody else. Most people, I would say 80% of people, 90% of people that I have ever talked to, all do the same thing. They run away. They don't take the time to recognize and admit all of their weaknesses, and therefore and then from there actually have a course of action to go about those weaknesses, to go about properly handling these things. I feel like taking the first step is the hardest. Yeah, you're exactly right. The first steps are going to be the hardest, right? And that goes with a lot of different things, but more importantly with self improvement, right? Like I said, so the way that most people get started with self improvement is they come across a video, and like I said, like I said they come across a video, maybe in a video like this. They'll maybe watch a few minutes and they'll be like, okay, what this guy is saying is good. It sounds good. Like I said, then you have two options, right? It sounds good. I want to keep watching because I want to get the most that I possibly can out of this. Or they'll say, you know what, I'm not interested. I know it could probably help me out, but I'm really not interested. I would much rather go watch another YouTuber who's making degenerate content, right? It's much more fun. Like I said, I could be a lot more funny. I could be a lot more entertaining. I could be doing a lot more things. I could have a lot more of a bigger following, but I choose not to because I want to make content that's actually meaningful to people. And like I said, what route do you want to go, man? What route do you want to go? There's always going to be that crossroad that comes up, right? When good content is put in front of you, you're always going to have those two options, like I'd mentioned. Most people run away still. Most people are resistant of these things. And like I said, going back 5 years ago, I was the same way, man. I was the same way. I was watching. I'll tell you what actually got me started in my self improvement journey. What actually got me started was watching a lot of Gary V's content. If I'm going to be honest with you, if you know who Gary V is, he's probably somebody I would say he's somebody that most people are familiar with within the self improvement space, within the entrepreneurial space. And he's a person that he's very very blunt. He's very very blunt. He's very very honest, right? And some people, like I said, they have those two ways of looking at it. They consume some of his content. They say, man, this guy's he's a little off putting, but what he's saying is right. So therefore, I'm going to take his advice. Or like I said, they had that same conclusion, right? You know what? This guy, his content's a little off-putting. And it makes me feel uncomfortable because it allows me to. It pretty much puts me in a position where I'm reflecting on myself, and now I feel not good enough. You know what? I'm not going to watch any of his content. I'm not going to go into any of these. And any and every person that's like this, I'm going to discard their content because honestly, it makes me feel some type of way. It makes me feel not good enough. It makes me feel insufficient. Right? There's two point of views you can have. There's two point of views you can have, right? Like I said, you just observe the people around in your life right now. I want you to leave in the comments. Are most people rejecting of this type of content? Are they accepting of this type of content? Put it in the comments right now. KJ, appreciate for stopping by, man. All right, facts, bro. Keep doing you, champ. The followers will come. Doing this will help people come up and really become better for themselves. Appreciate that. If people choose to generate content over working on themselves, they'll realize now or never that they've messed up. Exactly right. And like I said, some people, I would say, I'm gonna say people are too late. I'm not gonna say that because you're never too late, really. But you could be much earlier, right? You could have got the shit started much earlier, and that's the way that I look at it. That's why I look at it all the time, man. You could have got this. You could have got this started a long time ago if you were able to dedicate yourself, right? You don't want to waste time. You don't want to waste time within this life. That's just what it comes down to. Most people I know are rejective towards this content. You're exactly right. And like I said, I'm not going to say I don't understand it. I understand it very, very thoroughly, right? I'm an observer of people. I've been in the self-improvement space, not only observing, but creating content for over 5 years, man. Before it even got popular, I've been doing this. And I find this shit funny because, like I said, what it comes down to it is this, fellas. If you're watching this content right now, appreciate for stopping by. Appreciate for watching. Make sure and leave a like. I want to say this as well. That is your competition. Isn't that funny? Isn't that really, really funny? Your competition doesn't even put in the work. They don't even do the bare minimum. Now give it another 5 years, give it another 10 years. Now look at the difference between your life and the people who reject this type of content. Night and day, and that is what it is. Just because they weren't receptive to types of content like this, just because it made them feel very, very uncomfortable, very, very self-conscious of themselves, and it was too much to handle. They recognize what the person was saying. Like I said, whether it's this video, whether it's another video, they recognize what that person was saying was a little off-putting. Like I said, it made them very, very self-conscious, and they don't want another thing making them feel bad. They'd much rather have content or watch content that's going to make them feel good. That's going to tell them exactly what they want to hear. That's not going to be helping them out at all. It's so much easier. Like I said, it's so much easier to consume content like that. But like I said, 5 years goes by, 10 years goes by, and you can't even see that person behind you anymore. Like I said, if you're watching this type of content, in 5 to 10 years from now, you're going to be looking back to see the people that you're in a race with, because ultimately life is a race at the end of the day, where people would like to admit it or not, and you're competing with people, whether you like to admit it or not. Those people who are not receptive to this type of content, you're leaving them in the dust. You can't even see them. You can't even leave them in the dust because they're so behind. And that's just what it comes down to, right? Get over the hardest part of self-improvement, and you're going to be a better person for it. If you can't, then you'll just be like everybody else. But nonetheless, you have potential within this life. You must fully understand this and fully believe this, right? You must understand and find utility within you being your biggest critic. That's okay. It's okay to not be enough. It's okay to not be where you want to be. It's okay to not, like I said, it's okay to not be good enough right now. All of these things have this pretense of right now it's not okay. Right now I'm not good enough. Right now I suck, right? It's okay. It's okay to not be good enough right now, but like I said, it's right now. You put in the work 5 years from now. And like I said, it sucks to say 5 years from now because it feels so like it feels so distant, but life could be much different just by changing the content that you watch, just by taking action on the things that you find of the most importance. Life is completely different. What do you say? What do you say? Yeah, you already know, man. You already know, man. 5 years is gonna happen regardless. Exactly, exactly. Like I said, you know, God willing, 5 years is gonna happen regardless. Now, would you rather it be filled with 5 years of content that maybe it was really really funny, maybe you indulged in video games, maybe you went out a lot, maybe every single weekend, right? Maybe you had all these good times and all these good memories, but quite frankly, you're still in the same spot. If you're 5 years later and you're still in the same spot, you're still doing the same things, you're still hanging around the same people, you're still having the same conversations, you're still in the same spot. Or 5 years goes by, you decided in every single moment where you were insufficient and you had a weakness, you implemented something that's going to go ahead and help better you. Like I said, 5 years from now, your weaknesses that you have right now might be the strongest thing that you have to bring to the table for somebody. Who knows? Who knows what 5 years can look like? But like I said, I know what 5 years looks like if you don't dedicate yourself for the next 5 years. I know what that's going to look like. We all know what that's going to look like. You deep down, you know what that's going to look like. You know that if you don't put in enough work right now, you're going to be damn near in the same spot that you're in right now. And if you're not okay with that, then you can make the decision for you to go ahead and change. But if not, stay the same, man. Have fun staying the same. Like I said, I'm not in 5 years from now, I'm gonna be having the same types of conversations, but it's only going to be better. That's what it comes down to. Yeah, like he had mentioned, right? So do you want 5 years to be the same or different? A lot of people overestimate what they can do in a year and underestimate what they can do in a decade or in a lifetime. You're exactly right. You're exactly right. So, like I said, understand that you're going to need to make sacrifices. Understand that you're going to need to get over yourself. Understand that it's going to be very, very uncomfortable. There's going to be a lot of harsh realizations. You're going to be very, very self conscious in the beginning. But at the same time, that's the best place to start from. You are literally at rock bottom. You cannot get any worse. The only way you can get worse is if you waste the next 5 years. Then you really fucked up because now you wasted time. So not only are you not who you could be, but now you know that you're not who you could be. You're completely painfully aware of this. And maybe some people need this painful awareness. But like I said, the reason I made this podcast in the first place is to have not only to have good conversations, but to help some people out. Like I said, if this has helped you out at all, make sure and leave in the comments. If there's anything that I mentioned that really stood out to you, make sure and leave in the comments for sure. I'm gonna go over everything that I've mentioned, and then I'm gonna go ahead and end it off. I appreciate everyone stopping by, but crazy how one decision can change the course of your life. You're exactly right. You're exactly right. It could literally be life changing. It could literally be not only life changing for yourself, it could be life changing for everyone else around you. If you choose the right vehicle, if you dedicate yourself to a craft, if you dedicate yourself to fulfilling a purpose, the sky is not even the limit. There's no limit at all. The sky, like I said, the sky isn't even a cap, but let's just say the sky is not even the limit, man. So like I said, I'm gonna go over everything that I mentioned, right? The hardest part about your self-improvement journey, the hardest part about our self-improvement journey is the very beginning. Is understanding that you're not good enough and you're not where you want to be. And that's completely fine, right? Because most people get to the point in their life where they have that very very harsh realization. They're not good enough and they're not where they want to be. Two different types of people, right? First person accepts this. accepts this for what it is, doesn't want to go ahead and change something, understands that they have a weakness, understand that they don't want to go ahead and change the weakness. They'd much rather be living in this victim mindset and living with the results of that, right? And using it as a crutch, and going ahead and overindulging within entertaining content, going ahead and indulging within all types of drugs, alcohol, all that types of stuff, and tries to cope with it truly, right? Most people, like I said, it's a cope, exactly. It's all cope. You must be able to be painfully aware of yourself. That is life in itself. You must be painfully aware, and not only painfully aware of yourself and all your insufficiencies and all your weaknesses, but understand that it doesn't have to always be that way. It is probably not going to be that way if you go ahead and change. Like I said, if you make that one decision, like Jaden had mentioned, your life can change. But if not, it's going to stay the exact same, man. There's only one or two. There's only one or two point of views, right? You have that positive point of view where you say, you know what, I have potential, I have time, and I have potential. I can go ahead and make this. I can go ahead and change this weaknesses that I have right now. In 5 years from now, if I dedicate time, if I dedicate time, if I put actions, if I create certain habits, then I will be different. Maybe, like I said, maybe it can even be your strength, right? Speaking for me was one of my weaknesses. Speaking for me right now is one of my strengths, and it's almost 3 years now, or almost 2 years now. But it's crazy how much of a difference that can possibly be made if you really decide to dedicate that amount of time to a certain thing that you feel is the most important, right? But like I said, or you can have that negative point of view. Like I said, just accepting of what life is, and understand, and having, like I said, having this victim mindset of saying, you know what, I can't really do anything about it. It's like what they say in rehab: the first step on the road to recovery is admitting that you have a problem. Exactly, you're exactly right. Right, most people have a problem. Most people are unwilling to admit that they have a problem. Most people are willing to, like I said, just completely disregard it in general. Right, they're not willing to have the conversations. They're not willing to ask the hard questions. They don't want this. They don't like this uncomfortable feeling. Like I said, self improvement is understanding that you must be comfortable with being uncomfortable. And the second that you can do that is the second your whole entire life changes. I was a person that, like I said, I was a little bit rejecting of the content initially, right? But I found interest within the way that people talked, the compassion that they talked with, and like I said, it was just one of those things. Like I said, I knew I was very, very young within the journey. I realized that I had a lot of wisdom to go ahead and seek, but at the same time, I wasn't who I wanted to be, and the only way for me to become what I wanted to become was to apply the wisdom that I've learned. Another thing that I want to mention as well is, if you're one of those people who go ahead and reject self improvement, you're probably one of those people who are, like I said, who are indulging within things that they probably shouldn't be doing. And here's the thing: maybe even knowing that you shouldn't be doing these things and continuing to do them, right? That is the hardest part about that, right? For sure. But like I said, life can be much more rewarding if you're willing to dedicate your time and attention and focus to something that is of actual worth. Like I said, it might be initially very, very uncomfortable, and it's okay. It's okay if it's uncomfortable. Like, life is meant to be uncomfortable. Life is meant to be unpredictable. That's just what it comes down to, right? That's just, I didn't make it this way. That's just something I've observed. But with knowing all your weaknesses, you know at the very least what you need to go ahead and do, right? Or what you go ahead and should do, right? But if not, like I said, if you're just one of these people, like I said, these, I want to say 80%, 90% of people who are just rejecting of this and saying, you know what, it's not fun. It's not fun. It's not making me feel good, so I'm just gonna get rid of it. It's maybe what he's saying is right, but it just, I don't want to hear that right now. I'd rather go listen to somebody else who's saying some funny things, right? Yeah, that's cool right now, right? Like I said, I've said this time and time again. I could be making so much better content when it comes to entertaining content, right? And like I said, I might do better with views and things like that. But what route do you want to take within this life? Do you want to just have a good time? That's it. That's all you want to do is have a good time. You don't want to build anything that actually lasts, right? Good times only last right now. They don't last forever. They don't last forever. That's what it comes down to. In my opinion, rejecting self improvement is rejecting your own humanity. You then just exist and have and no longer live. You're exactly right. That is a part of living. The part of living is realizing that you have human potential. For people that go ahead and waste their human potential, like I said, you're just like everybody else, man. You're just like everybody else. I cannot be like y'all, man. I cannot be like y'all, man. But understand, like I said, become your biggest critic. Accept and embrace this. Accept and embrace you're not as good as you possibly could be. Accept and embrace that if you make slight, subtle changes within your life right now, with being painfully aware, you can completely change the entire trajectory of your entire life, and that's what it comes down to. Be very, very comfortable with the uncomfortable, and you will reap the benefits that most people aren't willing to go ahead and want to reap. Like I said, it is hard, but it can either be one of the hardest things that you go ahead and do or realize, or it could be one of the most exciting times of your entire life. Like I mentioned, for me, it was one of the most exciting things that I've ever experienced because, like I said, I recognized that I had potential. I recognized that I had time. I recognized that I was acquiring wisdom, and I recognized that I was making progress, man. I wasn't giving myself this illusion of making progress like people do with video games and things like that, where they think that, oh yeah, I'm actually progressing within life, but you're not progressing. You're literally still in the same spot, right? Progress within this life. You should want to progress within this life. You should want to evolve within this life. Yeah, like at least like you said, right? It's building a character in a game, but instead of an actual game, it's actually you. It's actually real. It's actually tangible, right? I always think about Sims. Some people live like that, letting someone else control their life. Exactly. You obviously don't want to be one of those people, and that's what it comes down to, right? At least hopefully not. If you do, good for you. But yeah, I want to finish with this. I want to finish with this, right? And I want you guys to think about these things real quick. One thing that I've observed is most people are too scared to raise their standards. Most people are too scared to admit the upside of their potential. And like I said, it's all going to come down to the realization of where you are right now in the present moment, understanding that you're not as good as you could be, and like I said, going about that accordingly, instead of just like I said, instead of rejecting it, instead of just going off on this on just having a good time, right? Getting off on having a good time, right? It's not lasting, it's not fulfilling, it's not the end game. It's not the end game, man. But truly, is it better to shy away from your potential, or is it better to strive for who you could be? Think about these things, man. Think about these things. They speak they speak the Sims gibberish too. You're exactly right. Unfortunately, they do. But like I said, what route do you want to take within life, right? Who do you want to be? What do you want to be remembered for, right? Ask all these questions, man. I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna finish with this right here. A man who doesn't seek glory already has lost the battle of life. If you do not aspire for the absolute best, you'll settle for anything. Raise your standards, fellas. Raise your standards, man. Is it rough? Is it uncomfortable? Is it harsh? Are people that are going to be telling you the truth, are they going to be very blunt? Yes, they're going to be very, very blunt. Does it suck to hear sometimes? Is it uncomfortable? Is it going to make you self conscious? Yes. It is going to do all of these things times 10. But what other option do you have besides going through that? Because a lot of people have that and they have no action behind it. So you probably are going to have it anyways. At least act on it. At least act on your potential. At least act like you have something to live for, right? That's just what I have to say for today's episode. Exactly. I'd personally rather go through the hardest things if it means me getting better. Exactly. That's just what it comes down to, right? You can't expect to be somebody great and not go through a great struggle. That's what it comes down to, man. Yeah, but I said everything that I need to say for today's episode. I appreciate everyone stopping by. Make sure to go and leave a comment if you are rewatching this or watching this live. Um, yeah, like I said, if I said something that really resonated with you, maybe a point that you really enjoyed, make sure and leave that in the comments for sure. But ultimately, what I have to say, man, is just the hardest part about self improvement is being painfully aware. That painfully awareness of yourself, you should already have that without self improvement, but you should already have that and be accepting of that with self improvement. But like I had mentioned before, there's two ways to handle this life, right? You know, understanding the negatives and positives, but understanding that if even if it is a negative, you can still make it a positive within this life, and you still should strive to make it a positive within this life. Glad I got to cut some of this pod. Got to go. Appreciate for stopping by, man. Appreciate for stopping by. But yeah, I said everything I needed to say for today's episode. This was episode 167 of the Life of a Champ podcast. For today's episode, we were discussing the hardest part about your self improvement journey. And yeah, I said everything I pretty much needed to say. Yeah, I really didn't leave anything out. I'll leave you guys off with the podcast motto. Fellas out here, man, we don't just work around here, man. We outwork. So make sure y'all work at these motherfuckers because you know that I am. Come on now. You already know what time it is, man. Few things I want to say before I go and end it off. Make sure you go ahead and leave a like on the video, right? Make sure you go and follow me on TikTok, Rumble, and Twitch, all at Life of a Champ podcast and all of those. And next podcast is going to be on next Tuesday. I'm not going to be having a podcast because obviously next Thursday's Thanksgiving, so I won't be having a Thanksgiving podcast, unfortunately. Sorry for those who wanted that, but you know, got to spend some time with family. You already know what time it is. So next podcast is going to be on Tuesday. Definitely tap in with that for sure. And other than that, is there anything else I have to say for you guys? I'm going to try to get some hoodies and some shirts for you guys before the end of the year. So if you would like to go ahead and purchase one, let me know. And is there anything else I want to say, man? This upcoming year, like I said, I'm gonna give you some insider scoop, man. Told you so 2024. That is going to be the mindset of next year, right? This year was takeover 23. Next year is going to be told you so 24. That is the mindset. That is the mindset that I will adopt and readopt the entire year of next year. So I gave you that insider scoop. Other than that, I've said everything that I need to say. Like I said, make sure y'all work with these motherfuckers. Y'all have a good rest of your night. Stay tuned for the next podcast on Tuesday. Have a good time with your family on Thanksgiving. And like I said, I'll work these motherfuckers, man. Y'all have a good night.